Hey everyone, and welcome to another Sunday evening talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Nor Kyle.
And I'm the other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
Yep, so thank you for joining us, whether you're joining us live or on the replay on YouTube. Welcome, we're happy to have you. And of course, we have to do our spiel. We're going to try to keep it brief. Mushtaq, would you like
Yes,
to
ma'am.
take the lead on that?
All right, so this is our spiel. If you're watching us on YouTube, welcome. If this is your first time, welcome twice. We would be ever so honored and grateful if you would hit the like button and give us a little thumbs up so that we can get further up in the Google hierarchy of whatever it is that they do. And we would really, really appreciate it if you would subscribe to us, because we are desperately trying to stick it to the man and get rid of the ads that they are forcing on our channel against our wills and desires. And the only way that I have figured out that we can do that is get to the point where we can monetize or join the program that they have for YouTube partners, and then manually demonetize each of our videos as they go up. And I'm more than willing to take the time to do that, just so that you do not have to endure all of the damn ads that come on. So help us stick it to the man and subscribe to us.
Yes, please. Please help us stick it to the man. And recently, on a more wholesome note, we have decided to start doing swag again. So as you can see, I'm wearing my own shirt today. We just got it in the mail the other day, and it's cool. If you want to support us that way, feel free to buy a t-shirt. We have a link in the description for that.
Yeah, and the nine-sided circle t-shirt doesn't even really advertise us. It just is the Enneagram as our logo, our personal registered logo that we made ourselves, and by we I mean me. But we will be happy if you wear it around, and it doesn't even have words on it. Nope.
So there you go.
And the link will be in the description below.
So there we got it. And of course, I still have an opening if anyone would like to work one-on-one with me, just putting that out there anew. And like we said, we're going to keep that brief. So let's move on.
That's more than enough.
Yeah, totally. So thanks for putting up with that stuff. All right, our topic today. Mushtaq's going to give us a little story time, and then we're going to discuss. So what are we going to talk about today, Mushtaq? Or what are you going to share with us?
A rare, nearly unknown Mullah Nasreddin story. It's not one of his usual stories. It's not the ones that you find in all of the modern collections and everything. It is said to be an ancient story, though I can't attest to this. But it is an important story, and it's a story about Mullah Nasreddin making his pilgrimage to Mecca, and what happened on the way, and what happened when he got there, and what happened when he got back. So that's what we're talking about today.
And Chris says, yay, ancient story, with lots of exclamation points. I'm loving the enthusiasm. Thanks, Chris.
So, are you all ready for story time?
Totes.
Hey, story time.
Hey, story time.
Sydney says, so excited.
All right. So one day, Mullah Nasreddin was sitting at home when he realized that he had to make a journey to Mecca. Now, he had never made a journey to Mecca before in his entire life, but he knew that he had to because, amongst other things, it is incumbent upon every Muslim to make this journey once in their lifetime if they can. And as it happened, he could. So the next day, he loaded up his donkey with provisions and they set off down the road. And they had a very long walk ahead of them. This walk took him through Turkey and down into Syria and through Iraq and then over to Arabia and then all the way down to Mecca. It was a long walk. Many things happened during this walk. He got lost more than once. He got found more times than he got lost, which is a good thing, because if you get found less times than you get lost, you're in trouble. But he got found more times than he got lost. And some of these findings were really good and some of them weren't. I mean, there was in the Arabian desert, he was found by a fellow who he spent some time with, one Mr. Al-Hazred, who he heard many interesting stories from while he stayed with him. But fortunately, he snuck away in the night when nobody was looking and managed to make it all the way to Mecca. He gets to Mecca and he does the things that one does when one goes to the pilgrimage. There's the throwing of the rocks and the circling of the Kaaba and the running back and forth between the hills and all of this kind of stuff. He gets that all out of the way. And in that, back in the day, when you went to Mecca, you just didn't go there and then hop on a plane and fly back. You hung out there for a while because it was a long trip and you were tired. And Mecca was a pretty nice place to hang out. Now, one day, as he was hanging out in Mecca, he found a nice coffee shop. And he went in and there was one seat open at a table, and he went over and he sat down and he ordered himself a nice cup of coffee. And as you know, Arabs love their coffee. They probably invented coffee. You know, and the coffee trade came up out of Yemen, and even in Mecca, they had coffee shops. So Mullah Nasreddin was sitting there and sipping his coffee and examining the various people. He could see people who were, you know, probably merchants who were not there for Hajj, but who were bringing in necessary things. He saw, you know, people who were obviously pilgrims from all over the world. You know, there were people who looked like they came from Asia. There were people who looked like they came from the West. There were people who looked like they came from Africa, and they were all sitting there and all drinking coffee. Now he glanced over to his right, and there was a fellow sitting there. Mullah Nasreddin thought, he looks like a Sufi. The man had threadbare robes, but they were immaculately clean. And he had a calligraphy set sitting in front of him, the quills and the little box and the knife to sharpen the quills and the little inkwell. And he was writing as he was sipping coffee, taking great care not to spill any coffee on his writing. And that's important if you're a writer in Mecca at this time. And Mullah Nasreddin, of course, being curious, was kind of looking over there and seeing, what's he writing? And then looking back, looking over and looking back. Finally, he couldn't stand it anymore. And he says, "My good fellow, what are you writing?" And the man said, "I'm writing some poetry right now." And Mullah said, "Are you any good?" And the man says, "Probably not, but I am passionate." And Mullah said, "What do you write when you are not writing poetry?" And the man said, "I like to write about what I see and what I hear and what I know." Mullah thought that this was pretty interesting. So he introduces himself. He says, "Hi, I am Mullah Nasreddin Hoja, and I come from the Ottoman Empire, from the city of Izmir." And the man introduces himself back and he says, "Hi, my name is Mahyadin, and I come from Murcia, far to the west. And so they're hanging out together and they're chatting. And Mullah says, what is the most important thing that you've ever written? And the man says, well, just yesterday, I think I might have been writing the most important thing I've ever written. And I was writing about my understanding of Surah Al-Ikhlas. That's the chapter of sincerity in the Quran, one of the last chapters, very small. And Mullah says, yeah, but everybody knows that surah. And Muhyiddin replies, yeah, everybody knows the surah, but do they know the surah? And Mullah says, what do you mean? I know the surah. And he recites it. He says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qul hu Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad, Lam Yalid wa Lam Yulad, wa Lam Yakun lahu Kufuwan Ahad. That's the entire surah, right there. Just a few lines. And the man says, yeah, you know how to say the words, but do you know what they mean? And Mullah says, of course, everybody knows what they mean if they speak Arabic. And the man says, well, tell me what they mean. And Mullah says, well, it means say. He, Allah, is one, eternal. He doesn't create children, nor was he born of anybody. And there are none like unto him. And the man says, yes, but what does that mean? Mullah looks at him like he's a little crazy, but Mullah knows that all dervishes are crazy and he should know because he is one. And the man says, think about it for a minute. Think about what you just said. And think about the implications of it. Ahad. Allahu Ahad. The divine unity is unique, absolute oneness, single and individual with absolute and permanent unity, and distinct from all else because there is nothing else for him to be compared to. He is unique in his essence, attributes, names, and acts. He is the one who has no second, no associate, no parents, no offspring, no peers, free from the concept of multiplicity or divisibility, and far from the conceptualizations and limitations that there is nothing like him in any respect. That's first. Then he said, Allahu Samad. Samad is the uncaused cause who created all things out of the void, who is eternal, absolute, immutable, complete and essential in every way, self-sufficient. Nothing is needed for him to be nourished, but everything is nourished through his will. He is the unborn, the uncreated, no parents, no wife, no offspring, because he transcends all of that. Even saying he is not correct because attributing gender to him is making a separation. He is completely incomparable. There is nothing equal or equivalent or similar to him. And Mullah says, wow, that's kind of heavy, dude. And the man says, yeah, it really is. And just in this little chapter, I've been meditating upon this chapter for some while. And I have come to understand the secret of it, which is the secret of creation. And Mullah says, please do tell. The man says, it's like this. Imagine pre-eternity Imagine before creation started. What was there? What could there have been if Surah Al-Ikhlas is true? And we know it's true because it's in the Quran. Therefore, it must be true because God said it. And Mullah Nasreddin started thinking about it, said, this is giving me a headache. I need another cup of coffee. So he ordered another one while he was thinking. He says, the mind boggles at this. And the man says, do you remember the story of the Mi'raj, the night journey, where the prophet was taken up to the heavens? And Mullah said, of course, everybody knows this story. And he says, do you remember what Jibreel said when they got to a certain point? He said, I can't go any further. If I were to take one more step, I would be destroyed. So you're going to have to go on your own. He said this to the prophet. May peace and blessings be upon him and his house and his family and everybody who he likes. And Mullah said, yeah, I remember that. And he said, what do you think that, why was that? Why could not Jibreel take one more step and yet the prophet could? Why could the prophet stand before the throne, the Arsh? And the man said, I have come to the conclusion that this was the case because the prophet had reached the state where he understood that he was nothing more than an emanation from that throne, and therefore could step into its presence because whatever was there was him, and whatever was him was there. Mullah sat back and said, that seems a little strange and perhaps heretical. You should be careful, my friend. That could get you in trouble. And Mullah says, yes. And the man says, yes, it could. But let me tell you, imagine pre-creation. What was it like? Nothing would be there. There would be no height. There would be no depth. There would be no width. There would be no breadth. There would be no time. Time could not exist there because time is a function of the universe, and the universe did not exist. There was one point, and in that point was the divine reality that existed in no space and no time, no height, nor breadth, nor width. There was no waking and no sleeping. There was just the presence and nothing else. Imagine what it would be like for that presence. It would be almost as if they were trapped there because there was nothing to reflect on. We all know that we understand ourselves through the reflection that the world gives us. Would not the divine unity also want a reflection like that? And he said, so where would the world come from? It can only come from the mind of that divine unity, from the will of that divine unity, because that is all that there is. And when Allah said, Qun, which means be, and the universe burst into existence, it took its existence through the mind of the divine reality. This universe that we sit in is Allah's dream. Mullah Nasreddin would say, why would Allah need a dream? And the man said, well, you know, it's possible that if you're stuck in a place of no space and no time, and you are the only thing that exists there, it would be very hard not to turn inward on yourself and just go to sleep. But if you create a universe, even if that universe is entirely illusionary, then there is the possibility of reflection. And remember the Hadith Qudsi, I was a hidden treasure and I loved to be known. So I created the universe that I might be known. The man says, known by whom? Allah knows Allah through Allah by means of the created universe. Because here we have time and space and we can reflect back to the divine, the truth of itself. At this point, Mullah was feeling a little bit overwhelmed and was beginning to wonder if this man might not be a kind of a bad Muslim and had been drinking a little bit of wine on the side or something, because this seemed like crazy talk to him. But the man said, think about it for a moment. Think about what you would have to do to teach yourself about yourself, to allow yourself to experience yourself. You need a mirror. And if you're the divine presence, it takes an entire universe to mirror you. And this is the secret of Surah Al-Ikhlas, to understand that the unity is all that is existent. And we hold our shape and live our lives and have our universe only because he remembers of it. In every moment, the divine unity is doing the zikr of the universe to keep us all together. And what he wants is for us to reflect back to him. And again, I say him because that's the convention, but realize that this is beyond gender. But the only reason that this universe exists is so that we can reflect back to the divine unity its own presence, so it can know itself through itself. And when I realize this, then I am the eyes through which he sees, and the ears through which he hears, and the hand through which he acts. And with that, the man began to fold up his writing and put away his pen kit, and he bid Mullah Nasreddin good day and walked out through the door, never to be seen again. Mullah sat and he thought about it for a while, and then he thought about it some more. And he decided that it was time to go back to Turkey. And so through many more adventures, he wandered back to his own village, and everybody came around and congratulated him on making his Hajj. And they said, Mullah, what did you learn? And he said, I learned that there are many interesting people in the world, and some of them are absolutely crazy. I met two of the craziest people I have ever run across. One was a man in the desert that had this book that was talking about all sorts of strange and unnatural things. And he was pretty sure that he knew the truth of the universe. But he was nuts. And then I met a man in Mecca who told me things that I had never thought of before, never heard of before, and probably didn't even want to know. And yet now I know them. And because of that, my life has entirely changed, because I can never unlearn what I learned. And the thing that I learned the most is don't talk to crazy dervishes. And that's the story of Mullah Nasreddin and his journey to Mecca. All right, let's discuss. What the hell did that mean?
Thanks, Mushtaq. So who wants to pop in first? I see Chris nodding along. You want to share your thoughts, Chris?
As I'm hearing this read, I hear nothing like it, and the no likeness. I'm like, what? So that was like I felt like a kind of shock for me to hear that, because of ways that I was scaffolding some understandings, and to then hear about like the participation with the one God. If it's non-participatory, like if you can't participate with it, how to, like, what is the relationship then? But then the subject relationship becomes a way where it's no longer participatory, or likeness. You just are, are one. So that was quite the jaw dropper for me.
Cool.
Thanks so much, Chris. And Mr. Keem follows up on that and says, he and not he at the same time. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Good way to put it, Mr. Keem. Yeah, what about you, Jonathan? I saw you.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is what I wanted to say. It's, to me, I within that story is my purpose in life. I need a purpose always to motivate me. With my work, the purpose is to bring in money. And many of the things I do, I have my small purposes that gives me the motivation to continue. Within this story, I sense the big purpose, the purpose for me in my existence, in my life. My life is in totality. If I can be of a service to something great, the greatest thing I can conceive, which is the world around me, then that I'll be tapping into a level of motivation that will motivate me in a way that I won't have been able to tap into before. And that's you said it in that the universe loves to witness itself in existence.
Yes.
That's my purpose. If I can be a small part of that process,
Yeah.
that's what I want.
One could say, if one were a heretic, that God wants you to show God how to be awake. And the only way you can do that is through your own actions and awakening. Of course, that would be heresy. And this story is, in fact, the medieval version of science fiction. No basis in reality, never happened. He said, covering all of his bases.
Yep. Yeah, so it sounds like there's something unfolding for you there, Jonathan.
Yes, I sense that's the direction I'm going to find my inspiration in, and I have been. I'm not unfamiliar with this idea, but this is the most beautifully described account of it that I've heard. So, thank you, Mushtaq.
Thank Mullah Nasreddin and Dervish Mohayyedin. I am merely their scribe.
Very cool, Jonathan.
Nancy.
So yeah, Nancy.
Yeah.
Well, I want to take a crack at the frame story because Nasreddin does not seem to be very impressed with all that philosophy. And I don't know how seriously we should take his point of view.
One should never take Mullah Nasreddin's point of view seriously.
Although he is supposed to have a certain amount of wisdom or something.
Oh yeah, that's why you don't take it seriously.
Because he might be prodding you in some direction that is not his immediate words.
Yeah, or he may be playing the fool so that you can learn.
Yeah, because he sees no difference between the philosopher or philosopher mystic or whatever and Alhazred from H.P. Lovecraft.
Yes. Well, remember, Alhazred was an Arab who traveled the deserts. Lovecraft just talked about him. He didn't know much about him.
Oh, I didn't know Alhazred was based on a real person or was a real person.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
He was, I'll send you an account sometime of who he actually was and where he came from. His name wasn't Al-Hazrat, it was Al-Hazrat, which means the presence.
Oh,
Yes.
that possibly puts a different angle on it.
It really does.
Thanks, Nancy. It's cool that you made those connections, but I wouldn't expect anything different.
Yep. If we end up with a little extra time, I may tell you the story of Abd al-Hazrat. Abd means servant. So servant of the presence was his actual name.
I do want to throw in one more thing. There's a Christian
Sure.
mystic whose name is escaping me, but he talked about how even being is too, I guess, earthbound, an adjective to apply to God. You know, that didn't even make sense to talk about God as being or not being.
I think that's an interesting thing to contemplate, and I do think there's a philosophical conversation to be had there that does lead in that direction. I don't think that's necessarily wrong at all. And that's a kind of, in a way, it dovetails with what Mr. Keem said about he but not he at the same time.
Mhm.
Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts, Nancy, for the moment?
Well, my easy interpretation of the surah was, we are so not Christian.
I mean, it is said that traditionally there were a lot of distinctions that were made very apparent on purpose. So that angle on it may be present, but I think it's also good to hold the perspective that in terms of interpreting the Quran, traditionally it's said that everything always has at least 7 different meanings behind it. So yeah, it's definitely not wrong. It's just kind of part of a constellation of meanings. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why Allah would need to worry about staying awake.
Well, imagine, if you would, that there is nothing but you. Think about that for a second. What would that be like if you were in this place of no space, zero space, and zero time, and nothing other than you exists?
Well, I'm native to this universe. I need it.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking you to do the thought experiment of what it would be like.
Well, it might be kind of dull. But,
It might be kind of dull.
or it might be one moment of whatever that never changes.
And that might be kind of dull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the things this was reminding me of was approximate quote from Stranger in a Strange Land, which was that God divided himself into parts so he could have friends.
Yep.
Which is a little more drastic. I do know that there are questions of whether God needed to create? You know, could there be a necessity outside of him, or is it, I don't know, some kind of free choice?
The necessity would have to come from inside of him, because there is nothing outside of him.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first learned about Sufism, one of the ways it was described to me was that it's almost like creation can't help itself. It's almost like this potentiality that is internally driven towards becoming. And that's kind of like the creativity can't help but happen. That's in its nature in a way. And that's still ascribing characteristics to whatever this being, entity, essence is. But nonetheless, I think there is that quality to a story like this in which there isn't kind of a conscious sense of, I am going to check the boxes and create this, this, and that thing today. It's almost like it can't help but happen. It's a spiraling outward from this point that is also, it's a point, but it's a no point at the same time, because of course, there is that that indescribable quality to the origins of this divine essence. So all that's created is kind of like a spiraling outward from this origin point. And yeah, as Mushtaq said, we get to, in this telling, we get to be the eyes, ears, all the senses of that experience happening in real time.
And remember, go ahead.
Sorry. I don't think this state would be boring or lonely or desolate, because those experience, those emotions are things. They are created things. So I don't think it would be, that would be the motivation to create the universe, to get out of a state of boredom or loneliness.
Yeah, various things have been suggested as to what the motivation is. That's one of them. Another is escape. Some say that the divine unity is trapped in that place, and existence exists to show him the way out. That, of course, is totally heretical and undoubtedly not true in any way, means, or forms, and any villagers with pitchforks can go elsewhere. But that's what some people say. Some people say that it has to do with the fact that in that state, the only option you have is sleep. Think about what keeps you awake. And of course, like I said, none of this is true. Put your pitchforks away, anybody who's listening to this. It's just science fiction.
Well, I don't know. I don't think I'd like to think of this universe as an irritant. I mean, you know, a useful irritant.
And yet that may be its job.
Yeah. We must troll God.
Yeah, kind of. But no, we must wake up. Now, see, here's the thing. Other than God does not exist. Therefore, if God were to create a universe, the only thing he has to create the universe from is himself. So he blasts his awareness out into this place where there is space and time to experience that.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
described as me as kind of like a kinetic movement
Yeah.
from this potentiality point. So it
And
is like an explosion in a sense in that way.
yeah. And everything from the tiniest atom to the hugest galaxy is just the awareness of God and nothing else. It can't be anything else, because then God would have a partner and Surah Ikhlas would be wrong, and it can't be. Because God said it's right.
So I think Sydney had some thoughts that connected with what
Yes.
Jonathan was saying. Do you want me to read it, or would you like to share yourself, Sydney? All right. And then you can augment it if you want to after I read it. Okay. She says, Jonathan's comment resonated with me. I felt a little teary at part of the story. Some turnings of the mind have kept me busy lately, and this story was a beautiful reminder of the direction I also see myself heading. Aw. Would you feel comfortable sharing more about that? If not, it's okay. I don't want to put you on the spot because
Yeah, she doesn't.
this
I
stuff
do.
can be kind of
I want to
tender.
put you on the spot. Tell us what you think.
She says, not right now.
All right. All
Okay.
right.
Cool. Omar and Cherie, how about you guys?
Ladies
Yeah, Omar. He said ladies first. What do you think of that, Cherie?
That's saying I'm she. I was reflecting on the fact that in Sydney here, we've just been put into a severe lockdown and we're not allowed visitors at all. So we're really, really in this wonderful opportunity of that no time, no space, no anything, you know, you just think,
Been there. Yeah.
everybody's talking about the, you know, the harshness of it and the mental health issues and blah, 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 blah. But, you know, you can really take this on as this is your opportunity to look at your reflection as part of the divine and bringing your awareness to being able to just be, this is not bad at all, you know, and it just made me think about why bother? Why bother even reflect on that? Why bother? I was cleaning the bathroom today. I've got no visitors coming. I could let that go to an absolute cesspool if I wanted to, but why bother? So the part of looking after yourself, of doing all the things that will keep you healthy, mentally, spiritually, physically, you know, you bother if you recognize that you are part of the divine, you are the mirror, and you keep your awareness practice going. You don't stop. And that's, I'm enjoying myself and I'm really enjoying this talk. So thank you very much. And that's what I'm thinking about. This is why I bother.
That makes perfect sense to me. And
Yeah.
I know Mushtaq and I have each been through that. Like I remember that we kind of went through this last March, April, May, and for the longest time, I actually enjoyed I think I talked about this in our Huddle in Place videos. Like it gave me this sense of aliveness to go through this experience. And it was also very much an opportunity to just be a witness of my environment and myself, and look out the window and watch the weather change moment to moment and things like that we don't really have I'm reluctant to put this in terms of trauma, but things like this are kind of culturally traumatizing, but they give us that sharpness of the senses that kind of jolts us into paying attention and jolts us into that sense of, like you're saying, you know, even though it's not for the external purpose of like keeping up appearances and keeping other people cared for, there's something about doing it for your own well-being.
You have to recognize you have a choice.
Yeah.
Whether you choose to be traumatized or not.
Right. Yeah.
You don't have to go down that path.
Right.
We have a tendency to do that. And so when you're awake, no, I'm not going to be traumatized by this. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to be. That's right. There's this very easy to go down this negativity thing that I got pulled up by a gentleman who rang into radio early this morning, and he was talking about, well, you know, he said, when I was young, I caught hepatitis and I couldn't go to school. He goes, I got over it. I got myself doing all sorts of things. And then he said, I'm now 70 something or 80 something. He says, I'm fine. He said, you grow up and you do something about it. You've got a choice. And I thought that was really great to hear. It doesn't mean that just because you miss school that, you know, that you have to go down and be lower than ordinary. You know, it's just, it's just like, wake up, people. You have a choice. You can make a decision and pull your awareness up. It's like, pull up your pants, Oh, yeah, pull up your socks. Yeah, some people are walking around with no pants on at home, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. That was a thing in my house, so it's for sure. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's necessary to frame it through the context of trauma, but for people for whom that framing is useful, there's a reason why they call it post-traumatic growth, which is an alternative or sometimes a parallel to post-traumatic stress. And we have the opportunity to invite in the growth alongside or as an alternative to the being stressed and feeling tense and all that. So lovely.
Maybe I should feel like I've invited the divine into my house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See my clean bathroom.
Hooray. Awesome. So Mustaqim has been kind enough to give us the surah in the chat here.
Yep. For anybody who wants to copy it, it's a good one to have. It is one of the single most important surahs of the Quran after Al-Fatiha, after the opening.
Yeah. And of course, you know, it's in English, which some people would argue is different than the actual Arabic of the Quran, but we utilize what we can.
Yeah, this is a pretty damn close approximation.
Yep. So there you go. And yeah, Ilmar, bring it on.
Yeah, okay. Beautiful story, beautifully told. Thank you very much. That was nice. I guess I have about 4 different sort of levels that I was contemplating on that. At one level, this is pretty traditional non-dual idealism, right? And I'm kind of curious where such a view started, where the origins of a view like that would be. Did it start? I assume it, it's there already in the Vedas and stuff like that. So it's not exactly sure it didn't start in the Muslim world necessarily. So that's one level. The other was that, if we think of this one, it's presumably pure potentiality. And how do you come to know what pure potentiality is? You actualize some of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so one reason may not be quite the right word, one motivation for actualizing a universe is to see what the potentialities actually are. And of course, that's probably one possible way of actualizing, but still it gives you an insight, gives someone an insight as to what these potentialities really are. Otherwise, they're just potentialities, could be almost for anything. So that's the second sort of level. Third level strikes me as that it's not just actualizing potentialities of form, but the stress seems to be also the recognition that there is a subject there, in the say in a human being, for example, a subject of awareness, and not just another form that have to be actualized out of potentialities. And that, and you touched on that, and I'd be interested in digging into that more deeply. It's that communion between the source and something that has the ability to reflect back to that source as another point of awareness. That dynamic seems to me there's a lot that could be going on there. And then the last thing that struck me is that, of course, one advantage of having individual viewpoints like that is that they are individual viewpoints, and you get different viewpoints on the rest of the universe. And having multiplicity of viewpoints seems to be essential for recognizing more fully what all these potentialities are. So that's where I've been tripping on as I was listening to this, and I think any of those would be interesting discussion points further. But
Oh yeah,
I
all
leave
of
it at
them.
that right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the non-dual thing probably goes back to the first cave person who found the right mushroom.
Yeah.
I suspect that that's where it started, because it gave them enough rocket fuel to go, oh, this. And it's been with us ever since.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And but of course, like the core insight of, for example, Vedas is that Atman and Brahman are one. Do you think that came to the caveman also as part of the mushroom or whatever experience? Or
in my experience, that is exactly what it is. Is right. That, I mean, you wouldn't say it the way the Vedic or the the various Indian philosophies would say it. It's more of a felt sense than words even, but it is the sense of all is one. That which looks out through my eyes is that which is looking at me from your eyes. That's the felt sense of it. And even that doesn't do it justice. I mean, there are literally no good words that I know of to describe that experience.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking about mushroom experience in this case, right?
I'm talking about the experience of awakening, basically, whether there are mushrooms involved or not.
Yeah. Well, no, but my question really was, is this something that you would attribute to the caveman? I mean, does it go back?
Oh yeah, I would totally attribute it to the caveman, and I say that with a certain amount of confidence, in having spent a lot of time with traditional shamanic type people. Mm-hmm. And remember, one of the things that they did was find the game. And how did they find the game? They became the game. They looked out through the eyes of the game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But you have made several good points, all of which would make excellent areas of discussion. Nora's taking notes.
So that's going to be your topic for the next few talks, or what?
I mean, it's probably going to inspire a talk down the road, that's for sure.
Yeah,
so.
And next week we have to come up with 2 talks, so it might be one of them. You never know.
Yep. So we'll see.
Anyway, good whole story. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. He's a great storyteller. Yeah. And this is one of those things where
she let me cut loose tonight.
Yeah. Yep.
let me off my leash. And I went galumphing about.
Into the realm of speculative fiction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mustaqim, what do you think?
Um, I don't know, my English is not good to explain.
Don't worry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding is that this like I understanding is that like the first 2 or 3 ayat of the surah is explaining that this is oneness. Everything is from God, and maybe it's actually God Himself that are we seeing ours and our everything. But then in the 4th ayah, I said, no, you are not God. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, before you think you are God, no, you are not Him. So that's what I understand. Yes.
As my teacher used to say all the time with a big grin on his face, remember, Allah is God and you're not. And that is to say that you are not God, and yet God is you. Because if you say God and I, you're committing shirk. There is no God and I. There is just Allah without partner. And you are not Allah without partner. And yet everything that is you is from Allah.
This kind of ties with Atman and Brahman.
Yeah, Atman and Brahman. Yeah. And it's a really hard thing to talk about. We none of us have the right words. I recommend 5 to 7 grams of dried psilocybin cubensis taken orally in a jungle somewhere.
In nature.
In nature.
Yes, preferably.
And actually, I don't recommend that because we're not allowed to recommend anybody do
Oh.
psychedelics still. Unless I was in Oakland, but I'm not. So don't do psychedelics.
Yeah, Sydney offers that it is legal where she is in Brazil.
Yay.
Well, there you go. Have at it, Sydney.
Yeah, and in Brazil, the mushrooms are the lightweight stuff.
That's true, isn't it?
Yeah, you can go out and have an ayahuasca session and not be thrown in prison. What a deal.
So Sydney, are you inviting us all down for a party?
You are free to come.
That's a very tactful way of putting it, Sydney. Yes, thank you.
But of course, another point that you just now raised, Mashak, that probably deserves some more elaboration, is this. I mean, we are in some sense both transcendent and human beings, and
Yes.
there's a tension in there, but there's also very much that is what being in the world is all about, right?
Yeah.
And I think a fuller discussion of that, she may already have had someplace, would well be worthwhile.
No, I don't think we have had that any place, but that's an important discussion.
Because I mean, it's kind of the core existential problem almost, like, how do you live in this world with a foot in both places?
Yeah, I'm taking a note and
Take a
we'll
note,
chew on
because
that.
all of this is good stuff.
Yeah, and I'll probably revisit the video on YouTube and, see what I can pull out and set aside as ideas for other times. Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you.
So that's basically all I had for tonight.
Mhm.
I thought you had one more story to tell.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I do have one more story to tell, but I will wait till we are off the air to tell only the people who came. It will be for you and nobody else.
So it's one of those that's going to get you pitchforks that's thrown at you. Is that?
No, this one won't get me pitchforked, but it's not one that I want to share with the entire world. But you guys are the cool kids, so you get to hear it if you want.
All right. Chris says the world is not God, but is not anything other than God.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
One of those thoughts that tends to really make you reach for the Advil.
It's fun seeing you crack up, Chris. I'm so glad that you can laugh along with us. All right. Do you have any last thoughts?
I have a thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I find myself sometimes without any TV or books or any other entertainment, then I'm trapped in a sense with my own thoughts and my own imaginations. But I really don't care too much for my own thoughts and imaginations. They're not terribly interesting. And why would I spend time in my own thoughts and imaginations if I could be connecting or experiencing the imagination of the Creator, which is the world around me? I think he has a much better imagination than me. That's it.
Yeah.
I think there's a both there too, because what is internal to you is connected to what's external to you, in the sense that there isn't necessarily a separation there. But I understand that there is a sense of relief and enlivening, perhaps, when we shut down the internal chatter and just kind of watch things as they happen right in front of us. So I guess I feel a little bit of a pushback against the idea that these two things are separate, but I understand that there is this sense of burden sometimes to what's going on internally. I totally relate to that, yeah. And we get to experience it all the time, so yeah, perhaps it can be pretty boring. I don't blame you for feeling that way.
I think that just about does it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question, Sydney. I mean, this is kind of all of what we do. So Sydney asks, how does one awaken the sleeping mind?
And the answer is, we will talk about that on Wednesday.
All right, everybody. I think that about wraps it up for this evening.
Yeah. So let us, I'm going to switch to Brady Bunch mode. And we can all say goodbye to whoever has managed to watch all the way through to here.
All right, Brady Bunch mode. And all right. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.